Good evening and welcome to the Widdershins Yarn. My name is Stevie.
And I'm Lillias.
And we'll be your guides as we wander off the beaten track and into the queer, crooked corners of the mind. This podcast is an exploration into the folklore, aesthetics, and social psychological impact of the horror genre. And tonight, something wicked this way comes because we're talking about witches.
Yeah.
Intro music, intro music, intro music, intro music.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
How are you doing tonight, Lillias?
I am good. I'm a bit giggly, but...
So I guess, yeah, just before we started this, we went on a massive conversation about spiders and our fear of spiders and... But, no, yeah. At least it's given us a lot of food for thought for future episodes on phobias. But tonight's episode is super special because it's the first episode of the Grimoire Club.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we should have our own little personal soundbite that goes there.
We do, yes. Yeah, we should. Oh my god. Oh, we'll need to be like, somebody.
I'll have a look.
Okay, good. I'm like, please, you're like my tech person, my editor, everything in one. So basically what I mean by the Grimoire Club is that at the end of every month will be dedicated to a different horror novel. So the theme of that episode will be kind of dictated or reflect the novel's content, essentially. And this episode, the very first episode, is going to be dedicated to Tony Sosa's Summerland, the Gospel of Noah. Summerland, the Gospel of Noah is the story of a young man called Noah, funnily enough, who discovers that he is a witch and is thrown into a turbulent occult world of magic, mystery, and a little bit of murder. Well, a lot of murder, actually.
Yeah, I was like, I've just hit the murder part in that book.
There's a lot of murder. But honestly, the book is truly excellent. It's the first book that has gripped me in like a really long time. It really is the definition of a page turner. So kind of tonight, in honour of the Gospel of Noah, we're going to be talking about witches. Yeah! So I guess, what does that mean? How are witches considered historically and in fiction? What does it mean to be a witch for actual witchcraft practitioners today? And we're going to be talking about the Gospel of Noah itself. Tony has very kindly recorded some answers to a couple of questions that I've sent him. So we're going to play that and we're going to talk about the book and just have a witchy old time. What's actually quite good as well is that Tony is himself a practicing witch, so I think his perspective on witchcraft is going to be quite interesting to hear. But yeah, Lillias, out of curiosity, do you have any history or interest in witchcraft, the occult? Give me all the tea.
I like how you say out of curiosity, knowing fine well because you met me during my heavy Wicca phase.
I feel like that deserves a fan thwarp.
Oh, I don't have my fan with me. Oh no. Oh, I'm fanless.
Oh. I'm your fan.
Yeah! When I was a teenager, so probably about 14, I think, I kind of discovered Wicca. I think there was kind of a big upsurgence in the Wicca community at that time, and I kind of fell into that and really enjoyed doing lots of research. I did some ritual work stuff. I was very into herbalism at the time, tarot, crystals. I was your token teenage Wiccan. I was a big nerd, and I was really into it. And then kind of as time went on, I just sort of lost that a little bit. I think it's not a phase, Mum, but I very much grew out of it.
Yeah.
I had parties to go to, and I had POC and friends.
Just a disclaimer, if you're practicing Wiccan, you can also have friends.
You can also have friends, I just do. No, I did. But like, yeah, I had more stuff to do that was social, and I kind of, and at the same time, I also, that's when I totally lost reading. Um, when I was a kid, I devoured books and I read non-stop. I would read novels in just a couple of days or just overnight because I'd stay up reading them, and like I couldn't get enough books. Uh, and then yeah, around my mid-teens, I kind of, well, later teens, probably 16, 17, 18, I kind of just stopped completely reading. I just had no interest in it anymore, and now I find it really hard to concentrate on reading a book that isn't factual. And Summerland Summerland. That's
Summerland.
Summerland.
Somerset.
Summerland is the first novel in absolutely ages that I have been able to read. That I haven't like, a lot of times I've sat down to read novels and I read like one line and then my attention's gone and I'm lost and I've left the room. But Summerland has been absolutely gripping, and it's been the first one. I'm just over a third of the way through, I think. And yeah, I can't. There's days I can't wait to go and read it, which is really cool. And it's funny that it's this has come back up at the same time that I've been going back into my witchy stuff. I kind of steer away from Wiccan stuff now, because questionable, for some parts anyway. I'm also, when I was a teenager, I was very much more god and goddessy kind of stuff, whereas now I kind of see myself more as like an atheist witch, in that there's aspects of it I still just, like deity things and stuff, I still just can't
yeah, it's just not for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's totally fine. I think that's totally fine. Like, I think I know a lot of people who fall much more on that kind of, I guess, atheistic kind of witchcraft spectrum. I mean, I'm a little bit different in my practice, in the sense of I feel like I can hear the cat wailing. She's like, "You're talking about witches, but I'm a familiar."
She really wants to be let out, so we'll pause for 2 seconds.
Yeah, pause.
Yeah, so very, very, very into it as a teenager.
And
then kind of re-exploring it a wee bit and trying to re-explore it through my now adult eyes.
Yeah.
And stuff as well.
Definitely.
And you, because I know you're a little witchy thing.
I am very. Yeah, no, definitely. So, I guess in terms of me, I would say that I kind of follow what I would consider to be almost like a dual faith perspective, in the sense of I am both recently I have started practicing Buddhist Tantra, which has been very interesting, and I love it. Love it, love it, love it. But I'm also very, very witchy as well, and I feel like my witchcraft and my spirituality in general is very much influenced by the kind of the dual aspects of my heritage and upbringing. So, on the South Asian side, through like my ancestors, that's where I feel like, the Buddhism kind of fits, whereas the witchy stuff very much influenced by my love of folklore, particularly British folklore. Spiritualism, I spent a lot of time in spiritualist churches as a child and as a teenager. Paganism, to an extent, there's definitely a pagan flavour, but it's not massively pagan, if that makes sense. It's also quite largely influenced by what I would guess is folk Catholicism, because my mum's side of the family is Catholic, and even though I wasn't baptised Catholic, I was brought up with a lot of Catholic elements, and so I think a lot of my practice falls into that kind of folk Catholic kind of line, because, I mean, let's be honest, I mean, Catholicism can claim it's Christian all at once, but there's a huge amount of hidden paganism going on there. Excuse me, I'm just gonna talk to this dead person and ask for stuff.
I'm gonna go drink some blood, eat some body.
Yeah, nom nom nom. So yeah, so that's kind of me. In my kind of research for this episode, I decided to have a look at what the definition of a witch is, for shits and giggles. And according to the Cambridge Dictionary, and this is actually hilarious, I do love this, a witch, and it just states this plainly, is a woman, not person. A witch is a woman who is believed to have magical powers and who uses them to harm or help other people. I thought the gendered emphasis on there was very interesting. If you're a lady, you're a witch.
It's also interesting how it's only affects others. Do you know what I mean? You either harm or help other people. It's nothing to do with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely. I know, because, you know...
Taking that power away, how dare you?
Well, yeah, sorry, somewhere a seagull died. I'm so sorry.
I love your cackle.
It's awful, honestly. I do apologise to anyone that's actually having to listen to me right now. Interestingly enough as well, the anthropologist Evans Pritchard, he did a lot of research on witchcraft, particularly amongst the Azande tribe in Africa, I do believe. And he defined witchcraft as the innate or inherited ability to cause misfortune or death. And he very much defined witches as separate from, witchcraft as separate from sorcery, in the sense that witchcraft is essentially an innate power that involves the unconscious willing of psychic energy, and sorcery being ritual, uttering of spells, all that kind of stuff. So witchcraft for him is something that's very much innate and almost unconscious, which I thought was a bit weird. But again, it's all to do with the fact that witches are born, and they are born to harm, which I thought was really interesting. And a bit like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, it's the standard guise for witches in a lot of history and literature, and this idea of workers of malefic magic, or maleficium, which is obviously this intent to cause harm, and like breaking the social code of society, which...
That's the bit I find interesting.
Me too. Fuck the patriarchy. That's what I think.
Well, very that.
Definitely, very that. I think witchcraft is empowering, and I think witchcraft is about very much empowering the other, you know, or that sense of otherness.
My drawback to that recently has 100% been more about it has been a lot more about trying to reclaim something that I think we've both lost as a society, and that I feel I've lost connection to in my adulthood.
And what do you feel that is?
I don't know. It's an interesting question, but there's definitely... So I've been doing a lot more things now of almost kind of meditative stuff, and like taking time lighting candles and all of this kind of stuff, and like kind of setting intention kind of things. And this is where it gets a bit weird, but it weirdly feels a bit like bullet journaling, but a little bit more intense. Bullet journaling is a gateway drug to witchcraft, okay? But it
all the conservative Christians listening to this podcast are like, finally, we found a way to get them.
But yeah, it very much feels like tapping into a bit of yourself that you leave behind when you're younger.
Oh right, yes, okay. Yeah. I totally get what you mean. No, I do. I mean, it might be because I was that weird kid who, like, you know...
Same, so...
Who, you know, used to do things to make it rain so I wouldn't have to do sports day, and, like... I was awful as a kid, though. Like, I remember...
But I think there's a thing when you're a kid where you have wonder at everything.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the great things about witchcraft is that it really tries to train that back into you in a way. That you're showing respect for things constantly, and it's about wondering in that awe kind of way. and I feel like there is a lot to be said psychologically for like the power of prayer and all of this kind of stuff. And like I'm not a churchgoer and I'm not Christian or religious, but I absolutely love it when you're in a church, like a huge big church, and everyone's singing, and the air around you vibrates with like the sound and the bouncing back noise and all this kind of stuff. And I can 100% see why Christian people see that as almost a religious experience and stuff, and it because it feels so intense that way.
Yeah, totally.
And I feel like it's as somebody who's kind of approaching witchcraft from an atheistic point of view, that's the stuff that I like to tap in on. And I think that those experiences, those kind of religious experiences, because there's no other word for them, can be important for your mental health and your well-being and your person.
So it's almost like it's a meeting with, as you say, this idea of awe, potentially meeting with the sense of the numinous as well, which kind of ties into what contemporary witchcraft practitioner Gemma Gary says. She's an amazing practitioner, actually. Her book on Cornish witchcraft has kind of gone crazy in the traditional witchcraft circles. Everyone's like, "Woo, Gemma Gary!" But she talks about witchcraft as being this meeting of self with something outside of the self. She talks about it historically, or within kind of folkloric accounts of this idea of a meeting with supernatural beings, often the devil, but sometimes the fae in British tradition, or ghosts, or the spirit in the guise of an animal, making an appearance to an individual who is impoverished or distressed, and essentially making them witches and imparting knowledge in order for them to be able to improve their lot in life. Now, some people in historical narratives, again, see that through the lens of maleficia, which is this idea of, it's almost like you steal the fertility of the land from somebody else so that you can prosper in their stead. But like, I think this idea of this kind of purely malefic element to witchcraft, I think, is very much a Christian lens. I don't like it. It
sounds like it's a leftover from witch trials of we must hunt them, they be bad, and not necessarily actually even be witches in any way, shape or form. But we don't like that this woman has a business. Quick, kill her.
Yes, it reminds me of that meme that was going around Instagram where it was like, a woman has a thought, burn her.
Well, yeah, historically speaking.
I know, it's like,
yeah.
A woman shows independent thought. Oh, she must be a witch. Right then, let's deal with that.
Yeah. Well, I think I've brought this up to you before and stuff like that, or we've chatted about this before, of how I have this strong belief. I can't remember if it's backed up by fact or not, so...
We'll just go with it.
Take my intellectualism with a pinch of salt, because it might just be me rambling. But there's a strong tie between the witch trials and the end of feudalism going into capitalism. So that you no longer had like your serfs, your peasants working the land for a gentry kind of thing. You were going into having business owners who were making money off of workers. That kind of changeover was happening whilst the witch trials were going on. And women traditionally had control over a lot of industries like brewing, weaving, medicine, all of that kind of stuff, textiles in general.
Childbirth.
Traditionally, it is our job.
Well, I mean, I'm not...
Well, that's arguable, actually, yeah, I guess.
True.
Do you know what I mean? Like, when you get down to it, actually, it's just people with wounds. It's...
So it's moving from that transition.
Can't see the hand gesture.
No, I'm trying to help you. I'm doing it too.
The words without the hand gestures, I need that. But yeah, it's moving through that transition and away for men in power to get more power and to get more money was to take over these industries and to make them into jobs and workers, and it forced women into becoming the subservient housewife. Before that time, like, patriarchy existed. I'm not saying it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Women had a bit of a shit time of it. I'm not saying they didn't, but they had a lot more control in a sense than afterwards. They could speak up and they could, not as much as they should be able to, but and they had jobs and all of this kind of stuff and a life outside of the home. And the witch trials really instilled in women that you must be at home, you must be subservient to men, you must be quiet, you must be the good housewife, you can't have opinions, you can't have a job, you need to have children, raise children, sit down and shut up, kind of thing. And it took all of that power away, and I think part of the massive resurgence in witchcraft that we're seeing over the past, 5-10 years, is because of women and people trying to take their power back.
Yes, definitely.
Trying to be like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna call myself a fucking witch. Like, damn right. Like, if you want me to sit down and shut up, no, I'm gonna stand here and I'm gonna be loud.
I think so, definitely. I think it's back to this idea of reclaiming a sense of personal sovereignty. It's something that. Which is, go
why
ahead.
I find it so it's just why I find it so interesting that dictionary definition was like, it's all about other people, it's about doing harm or good to other people and nothing to do with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I feel like a lot of the recent witchcraft movement has been about reclaiming power to yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's the sense of, it's resistance, it's reclaiming the sense of personal sovereignty. Ilona, who I'm actually going to read one of her personal accounts in a minute, I consider her to be a great teacher of mine, and she is a contemporary practitioner of witchcraft, and she's always talked about how witchcraft for her is about claiming this sense of sovereignty back, and it's interesting because what you say, I feel, kind of quite nicely segues into what Lee Morgan says, who he himself is a contemporary witchcraft practitioner, a queer witchcraft practitioner, but he's also a scholar, and he defines a witch as a person that hears the call and is marked as other by the other world, and their power manifests in both positive and negative ways, and that there are many kinds of witches as there are witchcrafts. So, it's all about this kind of, this different shades of grey, basically. But I do think personal sovereignty and reclaiming a sense of power is key within witchcraft as a whole, I would say. So what I thought is, speaking about Ilona, I put a call out on social media asking contemporary witchcraft practitioners just to send me in something talking about their own practice. And I have one from Ilona, and I have one from a lovely woman who I've worked with many times called Rebecca Sharp, who is a writer as well as a witch, and she blends writing and witchcraft into like a practice. So I'm going to read you what they...
That's so cool.
I know! I'm so happy they sent me stuff. So I'm going to read you their narrative. So this is Ilona's first, and I think this is beautiful. I really enjoy this. So, when I was young, I thought my strangeness was due to being a foreigner in another land. In telling my friends about my adventures with things they could not see, they pronounced my strangeness madness. I learned as I grew to keep my madness to myself and curb my strangeness into a semblance of what passed for normal among my peers. At least I tried to. School encouraged reading, but the books were dry recitals of what already went on in the everyday world around me. I preferred the books with dragons and fairies and elves and witches. But fairy tales, the adults said, were not real, merely dreams, and I dreamed often. Rich dreams that were alive in a way my daily life was not, and some dreams were dreamt over and over again. I was 13 when my dad took me to the West Coast for a holiday. We stopped at a cafe, which was also a bookshop, and my dad said I could choose one if I wanted. There on the shelves was a little orange-covered book with a broomstick and staff crossed on the front cover. The Little Book of Magic Spells. I devoured that book and managed to keep it for myself for a whole 4 months before my mum found it and threw it out. For a short time as I had that book, I never forgot it. It had been written as if magic and witches were real. I was 15 when I first met a large land spirit. That meeting both shaped and shook me for it was a moment that I had seen in a series of recurring dreams. In my dreams, however, I had woken in the moment before he revealed himself. I have since seen him a number of times, not always in his entire form, as in my first encounter, but I have felt his breath, smelt his fur, and seen a glint of tooth and eye. From that time forward, I began to explore the worlds of the paranormal, of otherness to the prescribed human world. I understood without having the language to describe what I was feeling, and experiencing that there was something else beyond my own existence. This time of exploration was a very solitary endeavour, as my father was a very practical-minded businessman and my mother was a born-again Christian, so there was no support for my interests. In many respects, the other world and its inhabitants became my true home, and though alone, I was never lonely because of that. In adulthood, I have been fortunate enough to meet many weird and wonderful people who have felt this connection to the otherness of the world. I have also met my share of mad, bad, and dangerous people, but those tales are for another day. When did I first call myself a witch? It wasn't when I met my first high priestess at 17. It wasn't later at 21 when I met my first druid, or when I danced and sang with a group of Celtic crafters. I was not a witch when I sat among the stones in Saddle, or walked on Macri Moor. Nor was I a witch when I saw death in the cards, or scried possibility in ink and water. The word witch was still an impossible, not real thing, suspended in the mind between the grim hags of folk tales and the coloured cartoons of Disney. What could this flesh-and-bone woman have in common with a witch? I have met many witches along the way. Witches with traditions and rituals, witches with altars and wands, sigils and symbols, cards and covens. All had something to impart, something I could understand and learn from. But those traditions were not mine, those rituals foreign words in my strange mouth. My altar a soft patch in the waste ground, and my wand a stalk of herb I had sung to. I have, like the ancient bards, called myself by many names. Pagan, animist, crafter, and heathen among them. I have worn these like silk scars for effect and to match my mood and interests. I have collected them like stones and leaves and placed them carefully in my baggage. Somehow all these different things, these experiences and teachings have only in recent years merged and become part of a cohesive wholeness within me. This wholeness suits me, woven together as it is by all the things this flesh and bone woman has seen and done. I am both in this world and in the other, one foot on my beloved land, the other outside of that, on the edge of things. So when did I first call myself a witch? When did the penny drop? Not with a spell, nor a declaration one day, but slowly as a self-awareness grew and new understandings took root. The folktale witch was less scary and more necessary, the cartoon witch less airbrushed and more wild. When what I thought I knew was peeled back to reveal the realness of things, then I knew I was a witch. This old flesh-and-bone woman at last discovered what the flesh-and-bone child had known, who and what she is. A witch.
That's so lovely. I really like that.
It is. It's beautiful. It's really.
It's interesting as well that she also did the thing of, it's like tapping into something from childhood.
Yeah. Yes. Completely. It is. It's taking that sense, that wonder which you have, and then, I guess, cultivating it again.
Yeah, I don't have very good words for it, but there's something that's definitely about hitting something of who you were before everybody told you who you were meant to be.
That kind of makes me want to cry, actually.
Oh no!
I'm not going to cry.
I'm slightly similar. I'm a little bit emotional now, so let's very quickly change the subject.
Okay, so I'll read now what Rebecca said. Rebecca Sharp is a poet and a playwright. For both Alona and Rebecca, I will obviously... I will leave links to stuff on this video. As a professional writer, I mostly write poetry and plays. I also make work for other styles of performance and regularly collaborate with other artists. So my work is very often interdisciplinary. Within any project, sure, I'll be writing the text, but I'll also be thinking about the work as a whole, how it is presented and experienced, how all the parts work together. For me, this functions in many of the same ways as magical practice. In both cases, I might be thinking about ways of combining words, actions, sounds, objects with a specific intention in mind. Privately, as in separate to my professional life as a writer, I practice witchcraft. For me, this takes the form of spellcasting through ritual action or constructing ritual objects such as spell pouches or talismans. I read tarot for myself and others. I design tarot spreads and rituals involving the tarot. I create and use sigils. I make oils and sprays with essential oils and work with crystals, the elements, lunar cycles, and seasons. I meditate and scry using an obsidian mirror, candle gazing, and smoke. Witchcraft for me is an overarching way of seeing how things are connected, as well as a way of doing, a way to have agency within processes by not seeing ourselves as separate to them. That certainly has parallels to how I approach my work as a writer. And she goes on to talk about a couple of specific projects that she's done which kind of combine the sense of magic and practice, but I'll read a couple and then I'll link to some of the others as well, so everyone can catch up on those. I've made specific projects in my professional life where I've overtly employed some of these methods. For example, my book Peripheral Visions was commissioned by Edge Hill University and brings together 3 works I made through site-specific writing and divinatory practice. In each case, I would choose a place of particular interest, go there, spend some time exploring, researching, and tuning in. Then I would construct an oracular device that a person might use at that place to better navigate or understand it. One site produced some tarot images that I made into cards, another produced a couple of casting stones, and another produced a mapped walking route corresponding to the major arcana. I've been commissioned to devise one next for Stornoway, which I'm hoping I'll be able to do next year. The work connects with the idea of the genius loci, the spirit of place, connecting internal and external landscapes across different points across time in the history of a place, seeing human experience as part of a continuum that we can tap into, while turning all of this into an oracular system that someone can use if they have something they'd like to ask about. So as well as what happened during the process of making the beginners, I generally approach my writing as a process of tuning in. There's a lot of intuition involved, to sense when I feel drawn to a particular subject, when I feel I'm on the right track with something I'm working on, and when I feel something is truly finished. I think poetry especially functions very closely to the way a spell does. Both are written or spoken, and there's power in those processes, in particular choice and arrangement of words, the manipulation of imagery, rhythm, structure, patterns. Poetry and spell writing both have the power to evoke or invoke, to point to something beyond the words, to conjure a feeling, a mood, a response of some kind, a shift of energy, or an act of transformation. In recent years, I felt less and less need to keep my various interests and practices separate, and why should they be separate? Clearly, they're coming from similar places. The Beginners is the first time I directly channeled a voice that wasn't mine, and in the text I mark that short section by writing a voice. Does that mean the rest of the time the voice is mine? Many believe that the muse or spirit or whatever you call it is all around us all the time. We just tap into it every now and then if we're lucky. And with techniques like meditation or scrying, or whatever you choose to call it, we just get better at tuning in. Like writing over time, I've gotten better at getting to the point quicker, tuning into the heart of a piece more strongly. Its needs to exist, even if that might turn out to be something quite abstract and undefined. I'm coming to this sense more and more of tuning in, and it's actually liberating to let go of the ego like that, to get out of my own way. On top of that, sure, there's focus, intention, skill, and discipline, and technique, as there is with anything, and all that can be learnt and practiced, but I find it even more empowering to remember that it's all just energy, ready to tap into and manifest. We just catch it as it flies. Yeah, so, again, really interesting. What do you think?
I really like that. It's really interesting to hear somebody who's worked that side of their life into their professional life as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
In what seems like a really intuitive way.
Mm-hmm. I guess but I think both of those accounts are highlighting this idea that witchcraft is almost a connection point between self and other in some way. And almost it's like a letting go of this kind of sense of ego. And, being one with things outside of yourself, be it in your perception, spirits, the land, or, your creative process. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I love it. Fucking love it. So, to carry on anyway, with kind of where this train of thought is going, because I don't bloody know. No. Lee Morgan, again, talks about witches being born with physical marks which kind of differentiate them from ordinary people. So I thought it might be quite fun to play a little game. So we're going to play a game called Which Witch is Which. Cue game show music. So, cool. Okay, so unfortunately you're my willing victim in this case. So you're just going to have to bear with. So what's going to happen is I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I want you just to try and answer me as best you can.
Okay.
So I'm going to list a type of witch to you, and you have to tell me what feature gave them away as a witch, okay?
Alright.
So there's a form of Italian witch called a Benedante, and they were born with something which marked them as a witch. What were they born with which marked them as a witch?
I'm gonna guess a mole, because it always seems to be a mole.
It's not a mole, no. Apparently they were born with a caul. A C-A-U-L. A caul? I'm trying to think what a caul is actually. Hold on, bear with.
Google.
Let's Google. What is a caul?
I chucked my phone across the room.
I've got it. It's a piece of membrane that covers a newborn's head and face. Birth with a caul is rare, occurring in fewer than 1 to 80,000 births, but it's harmless and is immediately removed by the physician. So if you were born with one of those, according to this Italian tradition of the Benedante, then you were a witch.
My youngest is a witch, then. Because that's the water sack.
Oh, okay. Right, yeah. Ah, he's a witch! Well, I'm not surprised.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like... Makes sense. No, joking. Oh, love it. Okay, question 2.
I'm ready.
What was a Hungarian Taltosh born with a full set of?
Teeth.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yay! Ding ding ding. Yeah. Apparently, if in Hungary, if a person was born with a full set of teeth, they were a witch. As a bonus question, what does a Taltosh crave?
Chewy things.
Things to get their teeth into.
Toffee. I don't know.
Apparently, milk products. Apparently, yeah, they've got a really strong craving for milk products. I mean, same. I fucking love milk.
Definitely. Same. Hate milk.
Okay, next question. What does being a 7th son of a 7th son destine you to become?
The one. The one they call the 7th son.
I've got the key.
Okay.
I've got the secret. No. Apparently a werewolf.
Really?
Yeah, apparently according to folklore, if you're a 7th son of a 7th son, you're destined to be a werewolf.
Okay. I always thought it was like witchy, psychic-y.
Well, I think there, because there's a crossover point.
I can tell your future, it will come to pass. I can do things for you, make your heart feel glad. No? Okay, cool.
I think there's supposed to be like a bit of a weird crossover between like witches and werewolves, apparently, according to folklore.
Not according to Twilight.
Don't get me started on Twilight. Don't get me started. Oh my god. Okay, next question. Having red hair meant you were likely to have tendencies for what?
Having no soul. No, wait.
Having no soul?
I don't know. Witchiness.
Yeah, well, witchcraft, lycanthropy, and vampirism.
Lycanthropy is werewolves, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And apparently as well, all redheads are vampires. Oh, that's really hot. Sorry, I really like redheads, so I just went to like a little happy place in my head. Anyway, right. Next question. Which famous English queen was accused of having 6 fingers and was therefore a witch?
Queen Anne.
Which Queen Anne?
Oh, I don't know. One of them.
I don't know, Queen Anne. Anne Boleyn was accused of having 6 fingers.
Oh, okay. No, not the one I was thinking of, but...
Yeah, because, of course, it was for her that Henry VIII broke away from Rome, so apparently she was a whore and a witch, and she had 6 fingers.
Oh, God. So I could rant for a while about Anne Boleyn. Like, just, the poor lady. Because, like, she was getting courty letters written to her.
Mm-hmm.
And so she moved away. I was like, I don't want none of this. And still got pulled back into it. It was like, yeah, no, you don't actually have a choice. And then everything gets blamed on her afterwards. And films get made where she's tempting the king. And it's like, no. The poor woman wanted to be left alone.
Isn't that Emily Autumn's song, Marry Me, about Anne Boleyn?
No, that's about one of the Catherines near the end.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's interesting. I thought it was about Anne Boleyn.
One of the Catherines? Maybe there's only a Catherine. I can't remember.
No, there's 2, is there not? I think there's 2.
Not... So, married, beheaded, died, married, beheaded... The beheaded before the survived.
Oh no,
oh.
Oh dear.
because he's very old, so it's like, marry me, he said through his rotten teeth, bad breath.
Oh yeah, because apparently he was a hunk in the early days, according to, like, the Tudors, which is, like, not historically accurate as a series. I looked at that and I was like, no way does anybody have teeth that good or bodies like that back then. I'm like, no, you're all gonna stink. No, mama, no. As a bonus question, what unholy mark was Anne Boleyn supposed to have had on her throat, which she covered with jewellery?
Oh, with her little bee necklace.
Mm-hmm.
Because style icon.
Right. She's literally a queen.
Uh-huh. Mole? I guess it's always a mole.
Gonna go with a mole. A wen, or a cyst, which she had on her throat, which again was apparently her witch mark, along with her 6 fingers. Which you're like, oh my god, leave the woman alone.
She's already had her head chopped off. Do you know what I mean? Like, just,
I know, honestly. Deary me.
Poor lady.
Poor lady. And final question. Stopping attendance to which social institution meant you were more likely to be a witch?
Sorry, which social institution or which social institution?
Which are you meaning? Stopping attendance to which social institution meant you were likely to be a witch, if that makes sense. Or what social institution?
The church. It's always the church. The church and moles.
Yep. Yep, it's the church. Again, if you were an outsider that lived kind of, out with the village, you didn't really attend church, then you were more likely to be a witch as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, same.
I'd be busy, do you know what I mean? But okay.
I just don't really have time, and the seats are really hard, and I just don't really like the set of hymns they've got. Yeah, that's hilarious. Well done, though. Woo!
Yay! What do I win?
You win my everlasting love.
Aw, thanks.
Anyway, moving on. That was really fun. But yeah, no, I thought we'd now have a chat about the Gospel of Noah.
Yay!
Because I fucking love that book. And Tony, if you're listening, there is now a massive hole in my life where the book once was, and I feel very sad because I don't have it to go to now. So,
oh my god, yeah! What am I gonna do when I finish it?
Well,
no.
You better hurry up and write the next one. I'm like, Tony, please.
It'll take me a while to finish. I don't get much free time.
That's true. You're a busy lady. But no, like, I really loved it. Like, I really enjoyed so many elements of it. Like, I really enjoyed the clever reinterpreting of a lot of biblical motifs and symbols in a way which I guess you might argue is slightly heretical from a Christian standpoint. But, like, they're not heavy-handed. They're empowering and they're atmospheric. Like I love, for example, and this is not a massive spoiler, but when Noah encounters the devil and he refers to himself as the god of his people, and it clearly mirrors obviously the dialogue between Moses and Adonai at the burning bush. Like it's so atmospheric, and it definitely points to Noah as this kind of chosen prophet. And also as well, have you got to the Black Madonna?
Just a little. I'm at the bit where you go. I don't want to give anything away, but you're at the bit where like you've got really into the story, and then you go, "Oh my god, shit got real."
Yeah, shit got real fast.
Yeah, I'm at that bit.
Yeah,
I had to put it down and walk away for a little bit.
Yeah, no. I had to take a moment, to be honest. I was
Yes.
like, oh, holy fuck.
I made myself a little cup of tea and I had to sit down and rethought about some of my life decisions.
I'm also not going to lie, I feel like I cried a little bit as well. I was like, why? But no, like, I really love this figure of the Black Madonna. Like, I'm not going to go into it because obviously it's very integral to the plot, but like, it is this figure of kind of awesome female power. And to me, anyway, as a massive religion nerd, it's great because it really reflects this kind of syncretic view of the Madonna, which you have in Catholic countries anyway, where she is both kind of, the mother of Christ, but also, she's basically a goddess. I mean, let's be honest, there's a book by a guy called Michael Carroll called Madonnas That Maim, which talks about the veneration of the Madonna in Italy, and basically, she's considered a goddess. Do you know what I mean? By the everyday people, and she's basically almost as powerful as Christ, really, in a kind of folkloric Catholic perception. So you're a bit like, girl, let's just be real. The Madonna's a goddess. Let's just let's be real. But I really love how he ties that kind of biblical idea into like witch lore. Essentially, it's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, because the book's main character Noah is queer, I wanted to know from Tony a couple of things. I wanted to know about what queerness meant to him in terms of Noah's character. I also really wanted to know as well, like, how he got into witchcraft and how that was potentially an influence on his book. And also, what is this idea of the devil in the book? Because the devil plays a big part, obviously, in the book. And again, as another one of these kind of symbols that has been heretically inverted, in inverted commas. I kind of wanted to know what the symbol of the devil meant for him and also queerness within the book. So I thought we could maybe play Tony's responses.
What's going on, everybody? This is Tony. I'm the author of the Summerland series, and I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who's taking the time to listen right now, and thank you especially to Stevie, who graciously and generously allowed me to speak on his podcast right now, which is honestly something that I never even imagined. I mean, honestly, to everyone listening, I never even thought when I wrote this that people in Scotland would be listening to me, or across the UK even, or wherever you all are, would be listening to me right now talk about this. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about, or Stevie asked me to talk about, is how I got into witchcraft. And honestly, that's a little bit of a long-winded one, almost, like I want to say. But I mean, essentially everything, I've always really been interested in the craft and in witchcraft. Even so, I mean, funnily enough, I was actually a Christian at the time of my own infliction. And I will say that because my mother was never religious, and neither was my dad. I mean, he was, for lack of a better word, and I want to say an atheist, agnostic. But the point is that religion was never imposed on me, but that was always me of my own philosophical kind of like endeavors, and just always looking for meaning. Because just, I don't know, as long as I can think about it, I think as a kid I was always just thinking there was something greater to myself. And then when I was around 13 years old, actually, is when I started to what I call my awakening. I mean, for lack of a better term, I mean, it was honestly downright terrifying, because I mean, I'm talking shadow people and trances, and it was just a really strange thing. And I mean, this started causing a lot of conflict with me and my own religious beliefs at the time, so I was horrified of it. But then, at the same time, low-key, I would be on YouTube, like, looking up "We All Come From the Goddess" and like singing that, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm done. It's so bad, it was almost like it was like a guilty pleasure, indulging in witchcraft. But anyway, so there came a point in time where I broke up. I was dating my then girlfriend. Yes, dating women was something I did at the time. And anyway, after I broke up with her, I kind of just felt like, what am I really holding back from at this point? What am I afraid of? And I just said, fuck it, for lack of a better term. And I'm sorry, I swear like a sailor, hashtag not really sorry. But, and I said, screw it, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to find a coven because I can't do this. I can't keep wondering what if. And I decided to just go ahead and do that and just kind of run with that. From then on, honestly, I tried to do the eclectic thing for a little bit. Sorry, backtrack. I tried to do the eclectic thing for all of maybe 2 weeks, and I just got frustrated because I just kept reading all of like these books, and it's like, oh, the goddess, the goddess, the goddess, and the horn god, and I'm honestly just like, what the fuck is the goddess? And what is that? And I was like, I can't do this, and so I went ahead and I found a coven, and I was actually fortunate enough. I live in Miami. I never thought that there would be a genuine, legitimate Gardnerian coven in Miami. So I actually went ahead and I went through with that, and they were within maybe a 40-minute drive from me, which is really nothing. And I went through with that, and I was initiated Gardnerian, and which I am to this day. So, and I love the tradition. It's a very beautiful tradition. So yeah, so that's essentially how I got involved in witchcraft. And it's been about maybe 5 years now, and honestly, I haven't looked back. It's been the most transformative journey for me, myself. I always keep it real. I have nothing to hide from everybody. I struggled with self-identity, with self-loathing, my sexuality, and for years and years and years. And coming into the craft really helped me take all the parts that I was ashamed of or was, systematically made to think that I should be ashamed of. And those became a focal point of my power. And now, honestly, I feel like I stand in total confidence of my own power and just who I am as a person, as a man, as a witch, as a priest in this tradition. So I feel like I've definitely grown a lot in that regard. And I'm honestly truly thankful for the circle without end that I've been very, very fortunate to meet, and all of the beautiful people that I have met along the way that have touched me and helped me grow and really helped me to understand the mysteries, and it's something that I could definitely die happy knowing that I did. As far as the next thing is witchcraft and queerness, and you asked me to talk about, how do witchcraft and queerness coincide? And honestly, I think for anybody listening, to me, witchcraft is queerness. I think to be a witch is to be queer, I think, in its own right. I feel like they're not separate things. I feel like they go hand in hand. The figure of the witch was never a popular figure. She was always a fringe figure. She was always someone who was walking the world, had one foot in this world and one foot in the next. And I kind of feel like almost for a lot of queer folks, our lives really is like that a lot of times, especially for those of us who cannot be out or, those kinds of things. It's you're kind of almost living a double life, and a lot of us kind of feel like we're living that. And I think even when you do come out, you're still queer. So it's almost like you're still part of the world, but then you're like on the fringes of the world. So it's like you walk that in-between space. And I feel like that's the life of a witch. And then, once I accepted the fact that I was gay, then, I kind of figured, well, then what are the charges of witchcraft on top of that? I might as well just, go for it. It honestly really just seemed like just another layer on top of everything. Seriously, it's just like, again, I figured, well, I'm probably going to hell in at least 2 out of 3 major religions, so I might as well just slap the charges of witchcraft on top of that just to make it a nice even, count. Because again, if you're going to be the best sinner, you might as well be the best damn sinner that you could be. And I think that's actually Anton LaVey who said something like that. So, and lastly, there was a lot of talking, there's a lot of talk, especially in the book, about the devil. And I'm getting a lot of questions, especially about who the devil is. And what is the devil in regards to the story? And honestly, I really ascribe to the old idea or the old adages of Satan for that. Because, honestly, to me, as a witch, I don't believe in the devil. I don't believe that there is a cosmic boogeyman that's out there that we can sit there and blame for all of the nefarious things that humans do. Because, honestly, if you're going to ask me, and I tell people all the time, I feel humans are perfectly capable of doing evil things without the help of the devil. But, that's just me. But honestly, when I think about that, I really go back and I think into the quote of Oscar Wilde, where he said that he represents all of the sins that we are too afraid to commit. And I think there's a deeper sentiment to that, because I think what Wilde was really saying was that that's what the devil is the fear of wanting to commit the sins that we want to. And I mean, I think back to from the movie The Witch by Robert Eggers, which is one of my favorites. And Thomasin is praying in the film, and she's asking for pardon for sinning both in action and in thought. And I thought, God, that is just so insane to me, to think that you're sitting here begging for forgiveness over something that you thought about. Like, you haven't even done it. And so, that's the kind of thinking that starts to spark this whole boogeyman that starts to create the devil. And I think that if you're reading, any old manuscripts about what people call the devil and who people accuse of being the devil, oftentimes it was women. Oh, you're a mistress of Satan, you're an agent of the devil because you're tempting me and because I'm feeling these sexual feelings. But I mean, look at the key factors of that there. I mean, the devil there is the fact that that man is, for example, in this case, is that man is feeling these sexual feelings, for example, and he can't control them. So for him, that is the devil. I mean, this was literally a time where people's own actual feelings were perceived to be the devil tempting them. To which, at that point, what is the difference between the devil and yourself as a person? There really isn't one. And I kind of feel like that's really what this is coming down to in the story, where the devil really is everything that Noah wants to do, but I think is too scared to do himself. And I think that's really what it comes down to. And I think that's really what it comes down to, who the devil is. I think just as a queer person, just in general, or just even in the basis of this story. Coming from someone, for me, where I feel like the devil was definitely accepting my own sexuality, because it's like I was attracted to men, and I hated that fact, but like I couldn't help feeling what I was feeling. So that to me was my devil, like that was the devil to me, my own feelings. So, which was another thing that I wanted to bring with Noah, and I think a lot of people were really, especially a lot of queer readers, were really happy, I think, with Noah's storytelling, in the sense that his sexuality is not the crux of his character. I didn't want to create a queer lead that was in turmoil over who he was, or his whole identity relied on his sexuality, or a lead who, again, that was the crux of his character, like that was a problem for him, or, like there's something. I didn't want to create that, because I think that that's just been done so many times over and over again, and I just wanted something that felt like that was very normal and just like a part of his life, because that's really what it is for us. Our sexualities are a part of our lives, and Noah's got other more important things going on in his life. So do many of us. So, yeah, I think that answers all of your questions. And thank you so much again for having me on this. And I know I've been rambling and babbling like a fool, but yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I'm really looking forward to any questions. If y'all haven't checked it out, Summerland, The Gospel of Noah. I have been working on this for a little bit. If you are into witchcraft and, you're ready for a badass horror lead, I mean, I think this is probably the book for you. But thanks again, Stevie, and I'm looking forward to hearing and seeing how this is turning out.
Thank you, Tony, for that. Thank you for giving us those comments. It was so nice to be able to actually hear you explain, some of the bits and pieces about the book. Particularly, I loved what you said about Noah and this sense of queerness, and that queerness is not, it's not, it doesn't have to be this kind of angsty focal point, which seems to happen with all sorts of queer characters in media. It's either they're coming out, or they're really struggling with their sexuality, and do you know what I mean?
It's really, as much as I think that those stories are important as well, it's really refreshing to have a story where it's just a part of their character, and it's not a focal point, and it's not a defining thing for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
it's really refreshing and really nice to see.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a part of them. But I also guess kind of on the flip side though, it is also nice as a queer person to actually read a book where a queer person is elevated and honored as well. Do you know what I mean? As being literally marked as something that is kind of special, which is nice because, you know, I feel that in a lot of media, queer people are either the side characters, the comic relief, you know, they're perceived as not really being very powerful or not being like physically capable. Do you know what I mean? They're quite often sidelined into these kind of like comic roles, especially like within horror as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
As a genre. So to read a horror book where actually the queer person is the lead and they're a strong queer person, for me I was like, heaven above, oh my god. Like, it was really nice to read. So I have to actually say thank you, Tony, for that, because it's the representation that I was wanting to read, and yeah, I'm just thankful for that. Yay. I feel sad that I've now got a massive I'm about to say a Noah-shaped hole, but I'm not gonna like
Sorry, that was a proper cackle.
I'm like, oh my. That's surviving the edit. But you know what, yeah, I'm really looking forward to Tony continuing to write this series. And you really need to check it out.
Oh, is it going to be a series?
It's a series, yeah, it's a series.
Ooh.
So there are going to be multiple...
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah, multiple different gospels. So please check it out. You can find it on Amazon. I will link to Tony's Instagram account. I'll link to it on Amazon as well, kind of, you know, in the description of this video. Because please support Tony as an independent artist. Especially as an independent a queer artist as well during this time, you know, because let's be honest, COVID has been a bit devastating for lots of different communities of people and their work, so...
Also, as we were talking about in previous episode, of how in our culture, this is the time of year where we tell ghost stories and horror things, it's been really nice when it's cold and I've just put the heating on and I got my wee hot water bottle and I'm in my gym jams and I go into bed and I get to read about spooky stuff. It's been a really nice little winter present to myself.
So you know what you need to do, people. You need to give yourself that present and go buy Tony's book. And I guess also as well, to sum up, like, you know, I'm going to challenge the definition of witches which we had at the beginning.
Yes.
You know, I'm sorry, but I see witches as people who are potentially marked as special, potentially in a way, or maybe sovereign or reclaiming that sense of power. There isn't one homogenous definition. You know, there are as many witches as there are witchcrafts, but I really do see witchcraft as a bestowal and an exercise in personal sovereignty. So, you know, let's maybe move beyond some of these archaic definitions, I think would be a good idea. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I would like to know from people what they would like to see for the Grimoire Club in the future, because obviously we'll have this very special episode of that dedicated for the end of December. So if you have any ideas for any horror novels that you would like to plug, or for me to look at, or for Lillias to look at, particularly if they do come from independent artists.
I was going to say, prepare for me to not have finished reading it in time, though.
I'll read it in time.
You don't read it.
I'll read it in time.
I'll struggle.
The struggle is real. But yeah, no, if you do know of any works by independent authors as well in particular that you would think, you know, should be supported, then please, you know, send us a DM, a message. But yeah, this is Stevie from the Widdershins Yarn signing off.
Oh, I've got to say bye now as well.
You do. You do. You do.
This is Lillias who needs some coffee signing off.
Yes. And I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, alright? Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Ba-ba-da-bum, be-da-do-ba-da-dee. Waiting on Lillias to come back. Gonna sing a song. Gonna be about all those witches. Gonna get me some witch bitches. Hello!